All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Almost Awesome Podcast. We're on episode number 36. Unfortunately, tonight we don't have a guest. So tonight I'm going to try to do something a little bit different. This month has been kind of wonky and weird. 2 weeks we did a February in review, so I can't really go and do a review of that review. And we essentially had one other guest this month. So the year in review. Feel like it's been that long. The month in review isn't really going to happen tonight. But we are going to try something a little bit different. I'll get into it as we go along with the podcast. But I guess to start things off, just like the title of the podcast is for tonight, it's how you doing? How you doing? How's it going? The reason why I wanted to title the podcast, or at least this episode, how you doing, is kind of to check up on like how everybody's doing through all of this. Right now dealing with the whole coronavirus and everything like that. It's kind of wild. I've heard like a lot of different things from different people about like how severe of a lockdown they're going through. Like even just last week, like talking with Alberto, where he has, as an extrovert, he has like almost like an itch and almost a need to be out and about, and being forced to be stuck inside and isolated, and to practice social distancing is pretty rough. And when I thought about it, initially I thought about it, and I was like, okay, so the lockdown is only scheduled till about like mid-April, right? And I was talking with one of my good friends about it, and after really putting some thought into it, I came up with like the idea that, are things really going to get resolved within like the next 2 weeks? Like that would be awesome. That'd be wonderful, right? Where we just go back to living our normal everyday lives like nothing ever happened in 2 weeks. But that doesn't seem like a realistic possibility, at least at this point. So I was thinking about it and like how long like this could potentially last, and after like listening to different podcasts, different people talking about it, it's kind of frightening to think like this could last potentially like 6 months, or like it could last like a while. We honestly like don't really know, right? And as like an introvert, like I'm okay staying at home, right? Like I was even talking with my mom about it a couple days ago, where I started to like stop looking at things on Facebook because I just started to get annoyed by people complaining that they have to stay inside and all this stuff. And I'm like, yo, guy, just chill, man. Chill and do your thing. But I also forget that not everyone's like me, where like I could be at home, I could be doing my own thing, I could like be playing video games. Like I'm cool just like lying, like I'm cool just being isolated in my room alone like all day. And the only reason I go out is like to go to the bathroom or to go eat. And that's about it. Since gyms are closed, I can't even go to the gym, so I just pull up like I have like my pull-up bar I put on my door frame. So I don't even really need to leave my room. But when I thought about the idea of having to stay like this for another like 6 months, even I was just like, hmm, that seems kind of insane. I can definitely feel like I'm gonna go crazy at some point. Um, but I guess we'll see how everything goes. Um, and I know people have been saying this everywhere. Um, but it's a good idea to kind of just like check up on people, right? Whether they're your friends, your family, like even just like people on like Facebook that you're like your acquaintances. You're not like in the close tight knit circle of friends. Um, but just to see like how people are doing. Um, I started to realize just like having so much time like alone and not socializing and like talking with people. Um, it gets. I mean, this is part of being alone, right? It gets lonely. You start getting that itch that you wanna talk to somebody. Um, I don't know about you guys, but I don't really like talking to myself. When I talk to myself, things get dark and deep and very sad very quickly. So, um, yeah, I think it it's unfortunate that something like this has to come about to kind of remind us to like just check up on our friends and just see like pop in, say hi, how's it going? How are things? Let's catch up. Um, but now since like we can't like physically go out and like see them at like hangouts and stuff like that, um, we just have to like you know hit them up on Facebook, send them a DM, send them a text, call them maybe, but who does that, right? Um, but just like even though we're like on lockdown and somewhat isolated, um, just don't forget to check up on like the people that you care about. And also check up on yourself. Do like a mental uh self check and just say how am I doing? How am I handling all of this? Um, which kind of leads me to my next point. Um, so I've talked about this before on other podcasts, other previous episodes of the podcast, and talking about trying to devote more time into like my self development that I've been like lacking a lot of. Um, and this month, this I like I'd like to make the excuse with um I'd like to make the excuse that with all this stuff happening, things are like chaotic. I may be calm and cool from like the outside, but on the inside, it's kind of just like, holy hell, what's going on in the world and what's gonna happen. Um, so I like to blame it on that I haven't been working on my self development like chart and graph. I wish I had a graph; that'd be cool. But my spreadsheet, I should say. Um, and honestly, I haven't looked at it. And now that I'm spending more time alone and with myself, I see myself falling back onto old habits, falling back into like the same kind of like dark pitfalls of like self-loathing and self self-deprecating comments and thoughts and stuff like that. And so it got me thinking. I was like, man, I really need to do like a mental self check. Be like, how are we doing? And yeah, I haven't. I've been slacking on that, and I need to work on it. Um, but the nice thing is that now that like I'm forced to be alone, kind of be spend more time like with just me. I have to kind of deal with it, right? That's one thing I realized is one thing that I'm very good at is running away from my problems. Like when something's like bugging me a lot or like something's bothering me, whether that's like a thought or like some sort of like interaction that happened that was like some sort of like lingering negative feeling. Um, I tend to kind of like brush it off to the side and like end up focusing on something else. I fill that gap in my mind with different things to think about so I don't have to deal with the problem at hand, right? I'm very good at like sweeping it under the rug or like distracting myself with like games, hang out like with people, going out, hang out with people, drinking. Um, but with all this like social isolation stuff or social distancing, I should say, um, like it's been a very sobering experience, both literally and metaphorically. Um, like I was like, okay, so this is the perfect chance to sober up because I can't go out to go drinking anymore. It's like, yes, I do kind of have some drinks at home, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, no, I don't really need it. I would say, because it was brought up to me by a couple friends who were concerned about my drinking habits that I tend to overdrink. And I jokingly was just like, "Oh, you're just jealous because you can't keep up, right?" But I thought about it, and I was like, "You know what? Let's just see. Let's try to see if if we entertain the dark thoughts, right? If we entertain the negativity and be like, do we do we feel like we're dependent on drinking and alcohol? Do we feel like we have to be drinking to be like social and fun and all this stuff?" Um, so it was kind of weird. I guess like the past couple weekends before they started like locking everything down, um, I caught myself slipping a lot. Um, I guess like drinking wise, where like I was, I guess like it was a weird mix of feeling upset that I couldn't I couldn't reject a drink or like just be like, oh, you know, I'm trying to stay sober, like I'm trying not to drink and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh, cool, yeah, you know, everybody's doing it. I'm down for a drink. Um, so that was kind of disappointing. Where it's just like, okay, well, my willpower to stay sober and fight for the month of sobriety failed epically week after week. Um, but at the same time, when I was drinking, I mean, yeah, I think it's fair to say most of the time it wasn't out of like a. I didn't feel like I didn't feel like there was like a need or like almost like a dependency for it, right? Where it was just like it was more sociable than it was anything. Where it's just like, oh, I'm trying to get away from you know my thoughts, the usual sort of escape pattern that I would employ with drinking. So that that was pretty nice. Um, but I think at the same time, I tended to instead of drinking, I still find myself fearful of dealing with the problems at hand. Um, where it's like a recurring thought, recurring issue that keeps coming up. So obviously, it's not some minor detail. It's not something I can just brush off and move on real quick. Um, that's one thing I started to learn where is that if if it's kind of like a constant recurring thing, it may be a problem. There may be something up. There may be something worth looking into uh, for it. So now that like now that I'm like no longer tempted to like run away and have like a drink, I'm not gonna lie. There are still times where I'm just like, man, I could use like a beer, right? Just like I could use a drink to just kind of like chill, relax. Um, but I also find myself taking a step in the right direction where I'm no longer it's no longer my first course of action to run away and kind of be like, I'll deal with this problem later when it gets bad. Um, I'm now thinking, okay, this has been happening. It is the point where it's bad because it keeps coming back. Now what do we do to resolve this? What do we do to fix this? And unfortunately, it's I mean maybe it could be a one step quick fix. That'd be awesome. But um, I think in more cases than not, it's gonna be a lot of slow, steady steps. It's gonna be a grind, just like everything at the gym, right? Building muscles, building that perfect bod, achieving those goals. Everything takes everything worth achieving takes work and effort, right? Um, if it wasn't worth it, then everybody would have it, right? Like that's the beauty of like devoting time into something. That's what makes something like worth working for. Again, like relating to the gym, like getting that perfect bod, like that moment that you see you've been trying to get a six pack and you see like the crease down the middle. You're like, okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're building the muscles. We're losing the body fat. We're starting to look good, but we're not there yet. You see the progress and stuff like that. But that's where I need to go back and get back to building the proper habits, right? Get back to the grind of working on my personal development, my self development. Um, and it was weird. I One thing that I started to think of was like there are a lot of times where I would catch myself like asking friends and being like, "How are you? How are you so confident in yourself? How do you build this self confidence?" Because I feel like I have none. I can fake it. I can feign it, and I can fake it very well. Apparently, some people have told me that, like when they met me, that I come off as very, very confident, and I'm like, how drunk was I? Because that may have been that may have been a good reason why. Um, but like when I think on it, so to give a little bit of backstory, on my the last month, so in February when I was working on like my self development chart, um, I started to think of this in terms of like creating a dating profile, right? Where you want to showcase like your best points, your best selling. And I was trying to think of like what what makes me a a potential a potential candidate for a relationship. Um, and like I was writing like general things like you know um nice, funny, honest, blah blah blah. The typical kind of generic shit, right? Um, but then like I was trying to think of like what else? What makes me what makes me better than the other guy, right? What makes me stand out? And when I think about it, Like I don't really know, to be honest. Like I think everyone has their own like peculiar charms. Obviously they have their own like personality, the way they carry themselves and stuff like that. That's always gonna vary from person to person. Um but like when I'm trying to like list things out, it was it was weird. It was like something that I I got stuck on for a while. And I saw a video about like creating like dating profiles. It was just like a random video. I was like, okay, let me just peep this because I could use some tips apparently. Well, I'll get into that later. Yeah, I'll get into it later. But it was one of the points in the video that the person brought up was just like they had someone else create their dating profile because like as you being your own worst critic, you tend to not you tend to not see your shining points sometimes. It's almost just like you're so tunnel visioned on like the small bits of your personality that you don't really see like the bigger picture. You don't see it's hmm, how do I properly explain this? I thought I had it down. It made sense in my head, but when I tried to put words for it, I was like, no, this doesn't. This is weird. Um, I guess for me, it's easy for me to focus on my negatives, right? So it's hard for me to see like when I try to switch it, and I'm like, all right, let me go for like what are my positives, what are my pluses, right? Um, since I'm already like in that negative mindset, the pluses aren't like that great. Um, and like I guess for me, I guess it's weird that there are a lot of like there are a lot of like bits and pieces of like my personality that I don't I don't really see. I guess like I kind of take it for granted because it's just um like I'm me. I deal with it every day, right? And like I guess like one thing that someone brought up to me was just like you have a lot of drive, right? You have a lot of drive. You have a lot of like mental strength. Um, and I was like, what? I was like, I don't think I'm very ambitious or like mental strength is not something I would say I have based on all of my, you know, personality weaknesses. Um, but like when I thought about it, I was like, yeah, I guess I am like pretty driven. Like even just like when I equate it to like my gym mentality, right? Being dedicated to the gym and working out. Um, trying to aim for like powerlifting numbers and just lifting big. Trying to build that bodybuilder physique. Um, I mean, still aiming for the impossible goal of getting a visible six, not just having it, but having it visible. Um, and just kind of staying dedicated to it. Um, and just having like the mental drive to like keep keep going at it, like seeing the progress even though it's slow, it sucks because I'm basically trying to starve myself just so I can show a six pack. Um, but it it was like one of those things that I don't think I would have realized that I had until someone brought it up to um and like I feel like that's kind of weird because like you would think since you spend so much time with yourself, you should know yourself better than anyone else would know you, right? Uh, but maybe that's just my kind of thing. Um, where like I tend to just not see uh like my good shining points. which brings me back to building a dating profile. So it's been what, not even like a week since like things started to get locked down here, and things have been popping off for me on like dating apps, and I'm just like, wait, what? I can't even like do stuff. I can't like even go out. Like what? What's going on? Um, but that does bring me to an interesting point where um most of these girls are like pretty young. I mean, they're like 20, like 22. I think was like the youngest, and I was just like, hmm, do I swipe this and entertain the thought of just like just to do it? Um, but a part of me is like, oh man, I don't even know. I say young because I'm an old fogey, bro. Believe it or not, as a college freshman, I'm well over 25. I know. I'm old. But yeah, like things have been popping off on it, which is kind of weird. And it's one of those things where when I think about like my dating profile and the things I say about myself, like when I go back, I'm like, yo, this is basic as fuck. Like there's nothing that sets you apart from like the rest, right? Other than not sending dick pics. That's probably like the only thing. I have some sense of class, right? Um but I don't know. Like I thought about it, I was like I guess like being alone and isolated, I'm just like, man, it'd be nice to have somebody to talk to. And I'm like, this would be like the opportune moment to just like talk to girls on dating apps and be like, fuck it. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. We'll see if I muster the courage to be like, ah, fuck it. Um, just get rich. Buy a maid slash caretaker. Yo, that would be the dream. Hold on, I gotta find proper placement for. There we go. There we go. Um, God, if it was only that easy to just get rich, I wish. Um, but moving onwards. Um, so I was thinking about what to do for um like future episodes of the podcast. Um, I know like lately episodes have kind of been like wish-washy. Um, like I found myself going back to like my old idea of um like just kind of having like casual conversations with friends. And I started to notice where like the original idea was to try to have deeper conversation with like people in general, whether you know them, whether they're close friends, whether they're acquaintances, family members, stuff like that. And I found myself like not really achieving that. I found myself like even with this last one with Alberto, we ended up getting into like the deeper, juicy stuff like towards the end. Um, which was it was nice, but it was unfortunate that we like had to stop and end there. Um, but that's also kind of my own fault for not um like taking the reins on the conversation. I tend to find myself um trying to play more of like a passive role where like I enjoy it when someone else is talking as much as it seems like I like to talk, which I definitely feel like I do since I can do solo podcasts like this like all the time and talk for like a full hour and I would still have uh more things to say. Um but I realized that in the podcast I tend to take more of like a passive role. Um I'm more entertained when someone else is talking and it's hard for me to um kind of rein in the conversation, take control of it, and like kind of really get the ball moving in the right direction. Um, so I think what I'm gonna start doing is um, kind of like how I have this episode, where I have like my title questions, like "How you doing?" And using a topic as like the focal point of uh, our discussion, and start off with like that deep question, and just stay like diving deep. Um, so I think that's what I'm going to start doing is finding more of finding more of a focus question, and then a guest who can like complement that sort of discussion. So having more of like a purpose to each episode, as opposed to kind of um, just showcasing like an acquaintance or a friend of mine or whoever the guest is, but bringing them there for a reason, for like one kind of general point to talk about. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes, because I know that's what I originally wanted to do, but I also felt like it may be difficult to find the right person for the right topics. There were a couple times in previous episodes where that kind of played out pretty well, where um, I knew ahead of time the guests that I wanted on the show, and they agreed to be on it. So I was able to tailor questions to them, basically for them. So then, because I knew based on their personality, that you know these topics would create like a good talking point with them. So I think that's what I'm going to be uh, trying to aim for. Um, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how everything goes. Right? Like this whole podcast is kind of uh, like an experiment. Right? We just have to keep trying things until we find out uh, what works for us. What like a combination of obviously something that I enjoy, and also something that I can share with you guys, the viewers, that you guys can enjoy it as well. Um, so I think having more of a purpose to each podcast um, should make it easier, as opposed to trying to watch a podcast specifically for like a specific guest. We'll have podcasts that are for specific topics, so it can reach you know uh, a broader audience, I would say. Um, but on that as well, I started to think about this a bit, where um, how do I go about this now? One thing that a friend of mine was talking about recently was like he was watching some videos. I mean, everybody does this sort of thing, where like you watch a video, you end up seeing um like a cool craft, or like someone displaying an interesting sort of skill set, right? And you tell yourself, "Man, I wish I could do this. This would be cool to do." Whether it's like you're watching a cooking show, and you're like, "Man, I wish I could just like cook decent food," or "I wish I could play an instrument. I wish I could learn a language and travel and stuff like that." Um, and it was funny because I brought it up, and I was just like, it was like, I was like, "Oh, like we all wish that we had the know-how, the skill set, the equipment to do this cool talent that we don't have. It'd be cool to be able to do something that we don't see ourselves that we don't see ourselves able to do." But the funny thing is that like for most skills, it's like you can do them. Um, with the beauty of the internet, like the information is almost limitless. Like you could potentially teach yourself like almost any skill um, that you would need. Acquiring the equipment is the beauty of Amazon and online shopping. Uh, but the only thing is that, like I said earlier, things worth achieving, they take time. It takes a lot of effort, mental, physical, potentially financial. Um, and it's all about like, you know, are you willing to put the time and effort into like learning that cool skill that you wish you could have? Um, and that's like I find myself asking my I find myself asking that question a lot of being like, man, this would be cool to do, but do I really want to put the time into learning how to do it? Like example, like playing an instrument, like playing guitar. Like um a while back, like I ended up getting like an acoustic guitar and um like I never put the time into learning how to play the guitar. Like I can pluck strings, and to make certain notes, and I can use the notes to construct a song and stuff like that. But I don't know chords. I don't know how to read chords. I don't know how to read chords. I don't know how to play chords. And like honestly, it's not like something super difficult, right? For people who know how to play guitar, I'm sure like it's not difficult to learn how to like play a chord. Um, but like I said before, like it takes time and effort to that you would have to devote to like learn like okay, these are the chords. This is what it sounds like. Then when we string all these chords together, then we can make a song. Then we mix in different strumming techniques to make different sound effects, blah blah blah, etc. etc. Like it's an ongoing developing skill, but you just have to put the time and effort into uh, honing your craft, honing that skill to where you can show it off and be super cool. Um, but time is like a super valuable commodity. It's something I realized I've wasted a lot of. And it's unfortunate that I'm at the point where it's I feel like I'm at the point where I'm playing catch up when I can't be. I kind of have to like I had to instead of trying to pick up the pieces of like of things that I like missed out on, I need to like hurry up and like get with the program, right? Um, which is it's super awkward, but like I'm trying to figure out like the best ways to like utilize my time. There's still a lot of days where I find myself just wasting hours and just lying in bed, lost in thoughts and not doing anything. Um, where it's not like I understand the importance of making time to rest, right? You don't want to catch yourself like overworking and then crashing and burning. Like finding that balance of like um, work, play, rest, so on and so forth. Um, but I find myself like I definitely catch myself a lot of times being like, "Oh, I could be using my time doing this." Like even now, like being alone and like isolated, like sometimes I find myself just sitting on the computer being like, "What game can I play next?" When I have like my gigantic 200 game Steam library that's waiting to be completed, games I need to install. Um, or I could be learning like I could be getting back into playing piano. I could teach myself to play guitar, right? Um, I could be I could be running. God, but cardio sucks. Cardio sucks. Running sucks. But I don't want to do them. But it takes time and effort to get good at them, right? Um, but I think where I'm kind of going with this is um something that kind of struck a chord with me was like trying to give advice to people, or like even just like giving like a positive outlook to life when things are kind of bleak. Um, like I used to do things like that, like on Instagram, where it's just like a morning motivation thing, where I talk about like um something going on in my life where struggling to find the motivation to go out there, do work, get the day done, and stuff like that. Um, but also at the same time being like, man, who the heck am I to be telling people how to live their life, right? Who what what right do I have to be like, yo, you should start doing things like this, man. Um, I know, strange, weird, and awkward. Um, but it's something that kind of resonated with me was um like one of my friends, they post like a positive affirmation like every day. It's like every day or like every couple days. And sometimes I see it, I pass right by it, and other days it like resonates so well that it changes the entire outlook of my day. Where like seeing that seeing that message, seeing that tweet, seeing that picture or whatever, um, gets me gets me running in the right direction as opposed to kind of stumbling, fumbling around to get out of bed. Um, so I thought about it and I was just like, man, you never know, like, you never know what it's like in someone else's you never know what they're going through, uh, whether they're having like the time of their lives, they're living it up, where they're in a tough rut and they don't know how to get out. Um, so I think one thing I want to start getting back into is kind of like spreading positivity, giving like trying to give like my thoughts on like life. And like again, I go back and think about it. Am I really in a position to give like tips on how to live life when my life is like a mess? When my life is like barely hanging together, strung together with bits and pieces of tape, not even duct tape, dried Elmer's glue and shit like that. Um, but I think I think it can really help, right? Like where I guess like what I'm trying to say is for me, sometimes you're sometimes all it takes is hearing the right message at the right time. One of my friends put it this way, where um, the right message may be all around you all the time, but sometimes you just need to learn to develop the ears to listen to the message. Um, and I think that's something that I need to get back into. I think it'll help me kind of reinforce my own um, positive mental outlook, um, and just work on like trying to spread that, because like you never know. Like, yeah, I think my life is kind of like a huge mess. It's in shambles, but on the same on the other hand, like it could be a lot worse. I could be like destitute, living on the streets, uh, dealing with corona on the front lines, unprotected, with no idea what the heck's going on. Um, so I think it's a good idea to like try to spread what positivity you can, because you never know who is going to listen to your message, who's going to hear it, and who's going to need it. Um, so shout outs to shout outs to you people out there who are spreading like positivity, those feels good man vibes and everything like that. Um, and it's like what I say, like it really is kind of like infectious, right? Where like after after me seeing stuff like that and me feeling good about it and affect like how much of a game changer it can feel like, it makes me want to kind of do the same for other people. Um, so we'll see. Maybe I'm hoping that's kind of like what we can start doing with like this podcast. Um, kind of like talking about having these discussions about like these deeper questions, these deeper thoughts. Um, honestly, like trying, I guess for me, like almost being a little more selfish, being like, hey, like I need tips on how to create a dating profile. Help me out live, because I'm sure there are many other people who could use advice, the same sort of general advice on how to create like a dating profile, right? But you also never know like who who may need it. You never know who has never heard of doing something like this, or I never thought about, the composition of my photos and the order of them and blah blah blah. Um, so hopefully that's what we can start doing with this, is just trying to spread more positivity. Try to extend a helping hand out to anybody who may need it. Um, whether it's you know answering some life changing questions and changing your outlook on the way you perceive your life, or whether it's just like a casual talk, an escape from you know the daily ongoings of life, the monotony of the work grind. Something, add a little bit of spice to your plain old rice. Um, so we'll see. Hopefully, that's what we can start doing. Um, but I think that's about it for me. I think, right? Um, so kind of to like wrap everything up, um, nice and easy. Um, don't forget to, uh, actually, before I waste this conclusion, as is usual tradition on the Almost Awesome Pod, we close out with a 1 minute uh sort of ending statement, um a way to send us home on a good note, hopefully. uh, but before we do that minute, thank you guys for tuning in, thank you guys for watching. It definitely means a lot to me. Sorry that like these things have kind of been messy. I'm stumbling and flubbing around, um but like I said before, sometimes you sometimes you gotta stumble and flub to really find your footing, right? I guess I forgot to bring up. This is one of my big points that I wanted to talk about too. Was the idea of being paralyzed and being so afraid of like failing that you don't move. You don't want to take action anymore. Um, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna be making moves with the podcast. Hopefully, we go in the right direction. That feels good for for me, for the guests, for you guys, the viewers, the audience. Um, but yeah, hopefully, hopefully we start moving in the right direction. Again, I feel like I'm gonna do this every time until things start feeling alright. But that's just who I am. Adding that to my dating profile. Overly apologetic. I hope that's a good trait. Um, but sorry about things kind of being messy. My advertising was like super off track today. Things have been messy, but we're floundering, we're flubbing around, but we'll get it right. We'll get it right. We just gotta keep going at it. We gotta keep going at it. We'll get better. The more that we try, the more time we put into it. That's how we hone the craft. That's how we hone in on being awesome and not just almost. But with that, we'll go ahead and start closing up shop. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell button so you get notified whenever we go live. If you're just tuning in now, we do go live here on YouTube on Sunday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to catch us live and jump into the discussion, jump into chat, we'd love to see what you guys have to say. That's something I also want to try to work on, is making this more interactive with you guys, the viewers, and hearing your thoughts and having you all participate, being here live, or even if you're not live, if you're watching it at your own leisure, please do that and leave some comments below. So we can start talking. Speaking of which, sorry, I'm a scatterbrain. I'm sure by now you've realized through episode 36 that I'm a huge scatterbrain. Next week I'm gonna be doing an AMA of sorts. I'll go ahead and advertise it now in case I forget to do it later. But next week, what I'm gonna do to start off the month is do like an AMA. Ask me anything if you don't know what an AMA is. I'll go ahead and advertise it out on the Twitter. That's... God, I don't remember the Twitter. What's our Twitter? Cool thing with chat commands. !boy Twitter. Help me out, Nightbot. But I'll post it up on the Twitter about an AMA, and I'll be hand selecting questions from that to talk about on the podcast. If there's a discussion to be had with that question, I'll bring it up on the podcast. If it's just a short thing, I'll mention it. But we'll see. We'll see how many questions we get, and we'll do like a live segment of it, answering those questions. I'll also answer them on Twitter. I'll try to advertise it on Instagram too. Whichever way is easiest for you. Oh, forgot. Easiest way to figure out our social medias. Check in the description. You'll see all our social media there. Follow us on all those things. We try to get the message out as best we can. We're working on it. But yeah, I think it's about time we actually close. The typical Filipino goodbye. I say goodbye, and we're standing by the door, and we're still talking for another 5-10 minutes. But to bring us back around, again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. As is usual, tradition, we close up shop with a 1-minute closer. Since there's no guests today, I'm going to leave it in silence. Just kidding. There's no way I'm doing it in silence. But here we go. All right. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for watching. It means so much. Big takeaways from this podcast episode is check with your friends and family. See how they're doing during this time. Just to see, like, hey, what's up? How are you doing? Let's catch up. Let's talk. Especially while it's so hard to be sociable, right? Check up on them. See how they're doing. Check up on yourself. Ask yourself, how are you doing? How are we doing? Be honest. If things are a mess, figure out what you got to do to clean things up. If things are good, then keep doing it, right? Ain't broke, don't fix it. But remember, take care of yourself. Be safe. Be clean. Check on your friends and family because they matter. Don't forget, grind it out. We're all going to get good together. The more time we put into it, the better we're going to get. And with that, we're out. See you next week. Bye.